Ray was texting 5 minutes before and was like, just want to remind you that there's a meeting. I was like, I think I scared her a little bit.
He heard you.
I said, if there's snacks, I'll come on time.
There are snacks.
I know,
That's why Eric brushed the snacks in.
Yeah, that's why she was texting me, bring the snacks. All right. Well, let's get started. Thank you for being here today. This is the Finance, Legal, Administrative, and Real Estate Committee meeting for the Distal Healthcare District. It is 3 p.m. on Tuesday, the 9th of June. We'll call to order. Can I have an approval of the agenda?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any public comments? Any public comments on the agenda?
No
Approval?
public comments.
Yeah. All right. Carries. Meeting minutes from last month are here. I'll open up for any board member questions on the meeting minutes.
I have none, and
Okay.
I move approval of the
Thank you.
minutes. Second.
Okay, any public comments?
No public comments.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. D, public comments at this time. Comments from the audience may be made on items not listed on the agenda that are of public interest and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the district. The committee has a policy of limiting speakers to not more than 3 minutes. The committee cannot take action on items not listed on the agenda. Public input may be offered on an agenda item when it comes up for discussion and or action. Are there any additional public comments at this time?
There are no public comments for items not listed on the agenda.
Thank you. All right. The interim chief executive officer report. Don,
Well, Keith Sterling's late, so
oh, hopefully he's okay.
Yeah, he was just,
he thought it was at 4:30, the meeting, so
Oh,
at 1:30.
we can always zoom in. You know, it doesn't have to come in person.
right, I'll talk to him about that after.
It's nice to see him. Okay, well then, that was a very quick. You have anything else?
No,
Um,
nice to be here.
I just wish you were here. I can get my computer out now. Look at it myself. CAO report, Las Palmas Medical Plaza.
So I will start on page 37 of the packet. Reference, okay, so just overview, we're beginning the process to recruit a new accounting manager. Currently have temporary assistants to fill the roles since last month. As far as the medical plaza, we've got work that's continuing on various repair work related to the sewer and venting. We are currently working with legal counsel on the next steps for the sewer pipe replacement process that we've been discussing in prior meetings. Occupancy, maintaining the 100%. At the moment, estimated annual rent, including CAMs, $1,639,678. We do have one upcoming lease renewal, which is expected to be brought in the committee next month. And then as far as the financial side, I do have a discussion item regarding the current financial statement process, but that'll be one of the last things on the agenda for today. And that's all I have for now.
Questions? Questions? Straightforward. Okay. I don't think we need any action on that, so on to financial reports.
All right, so I'm gonna start similar to what I've been doing the last few months on page 41. It's gonna be our profit and loss summary. Just make a note. So right now, income is up about 2.9 million, primarily due to that sale of the land lease that we've been speaking about the last couple months there. We do have investments are up year to date, approximately 150,000. Got property taxes up 74,000, and then LPMP income up 142,000. Expenses before grants, right now they're under budget approximately 1.06 million. Similar drivers that we've been talking about in the past, just having to do with being down in professional fees and direct expenses. And then just make a note that the grant budget right now is showing at budget, because after the awards we made last month and then making the associated grant budget revision, we're at budget right now. So the only thing that will be left for next month, we do have 20,000 that's on the budget. But we're still working through the last two mini grants that have been submitted prior to that March 1st date. So, we don't know for certain yet that both of those will be awarded. So we're trying to get the remaining
I
dollars.
believe one of them is gonna be withdrawn.
Okay. So there is that.
So how much, what is the remaining balance then? I saw that number, you said 20,000?
20,000, yeah, that was part of the number that was presented last month for the revision to make sure that we allowed for that to process those two remaining applications.
If one of them is dropping out, how much do you think will be left over? If it-
Yeah, 20 was 10 for each of the two applications, since they were the mini grants.
Okay, I have a reason, explain it later on. Thank you.
None.
No,
Oh, okay.
do you want me to say it now? No, I think we'll just go through the
Okay.
process. Thank you.
Under committee member comments.
Yeah, and the reason I looked at our Alejandro was because, the person reached out to you and they probably know, you're paying some familiar.
Oh, yes, yes, she did, give me a note, yes.
Okay, so,
All right, the next page I was going to focus on, page 45, which is going to be the LPMP profit and loss here. Just wanted to know, we've got the revenue being up primarily due to being fully occupied. Expenses are down approximately 31,000, which is about the same as we had last month, which is a mix of over and under budget categories. My next highlight, and then once I'm done, obviously you can ask any questions you'd like, but the items I wanted to point out, page 53. At the very bottom is just make a note that we're starting to get our larger property tax apportionments for the year. So we have here just about 1.8 million we received at the end of May. And then so far in June, we've received 2.9 million. So hitting our,
Where is that on your? What, is it on the budget sheet anywhere?
which one?
I'm looking at the P and L budget sheet here on income, property tax revenues for the month.
So that let's see, you're looking at page 42.
I think it's 42 of the packet.
Yeah, 42. It's already the deposit that we received at the end of May is already in there, but
Okay,
it's part of.
So
the
you're
budget.
updating, because those numbers that you're mentioning aren't, specifically.
Correct. I just was going off of the, what we do have, we budget the year based on when we expect to receive it. So
Yes.
some months are 0 and whatnot. So right now, year to date, which includes that 1.8 million, is where we're up 74,000.
Yeah.
The number that I referenced, the 2.9 million, is not in this because these are only up through May 31st. It was just more information.
I thought so. That's what we discussed. I just wanted.
it's page 15 of 27 is what it's at. Okay.
Here.
But yeah, those were the main elements I wanted to make note from this, and I can answer any questions you might have on financials.
Thought they look very appropriate for this month and for the year. I mean, we're obviously down on expenses, is why our net income looks up, but those expenses should take care of themselves throughout the remainder. So, any questions?
No, I haven't.
No questions.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the financial reports?
Second,
Okay, any public comments on the financial reports?
There are no public comments.
Anybody else have any other comments? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, excellent. We're gonna go to other matters. We've got 5 of them to address, 4 of them to take action on. 1 is a discussion. We'll start with number 1. I think we have a public comment on this as well, but we'll go ahead and present this and then come open for any public comments on that. Bob Murray and Associates.
Just, I can jump in. So this item seeking the committee's consideration to approve the proposal from Bob Murray and Associates to conduct CEO recruitment services. This item was added as a request from the board president and legal counsel. The proposals for $36,000, which would utilize funds that are budgeted in both the FY 25-26 as well as the upcoming budget. And then there are some additional optional elements that would be at the discretion of the board. But at this point, what we were looking for is there was approval to move the proposal forward, and then we would bring an agreement to the actual board meeting.
so I did the chance to review the proposal. And I know that it was prepared for another company, State Bar, and rather than ours, but I'm guessing that a lot of the same key elements.
I think what had been provided was two separate examples of others. The first bit right after the, starting on page 67 was the actual proposal to us, and then we had two examples of the solicitation that they had done for others.
I missed that, I'm sorry.
I should have noted that in the staff report there, but
Okay, so what I don't know if this is gonna apply then, two things that I was, thinking of when I was reviewing this was one, the recruitment schedule, it's a 4-month recruitment. And I'm just wondering if there's, you know. awkward
It's all I get caught. Yeah, I'm not doing the Heimlich, I'm not doing the Heimlich, we're drinking, you're drinking it down, we're not bringing it back up.
The 4-month schedule, I was just wondering if there was any possibility of that kind of being condensed a little bit to kind of move this sooner, or I know we don't want to rush it to really get the right person, but getting the right person at the tail end is definitely important, but at the beginning, is there any possibility of us reducing the time by, by reviewing this, and any thoughts by board members on that?
You're right, saying, we'd like to get it filled as quick as possible, but obviously finding the right person at this point is probably more important than the speed, but I don't think we want this to drag on 2 or 3 years, if this needs to be, like you said, 3 to 6 month process to get it done.
Was like the weeks 2 to 4, development and marketing materials. They just did this 4 years ago. How do they really need 2 to 4 weeks to do that? I'm just kind of like wondering about that.
I don't know, that's a good point.
Social media campaign launch 5 to 6 weeks. I'm guessing that's the 5th week to the 6th week. Does it take 2 weeks to launch something? I'm just wondering, just what, if they understand that we would like to see how this can be expedited in the areas that can be, where the interviews, we definitely want to ensure that we have the right period of time to have the public data so that people are aware of it. And we don't want to say, okay, it's open for 2 days, definitely not to allow for them the maximum amount of time for that posting. But the areas that can be, if they could just give us that kind of feedback, if we can revisit this. If this is, I guess maybe I was thinking because I thought that they were using a standard template, that don't use a standard template. Can we just kind of revisit it and see if there's any possibility of if it's considering the work that you've done with the district, familiarity with the district, what are, just revisiting the things, like, are these things still important to the board? Are these things still important, but not having to start from scratch?
what I think we could do, because with this proposal, it's primarily been conducted through legal counsel. I can reach out to see if you have any other ideas, Tom, let me know. But see if they can be present at the board meeting to be able to answer those questions, but I can route this through to Jeff just to see and get that conversation started in advance of that.
Yeah, and if they could just revisit, and if they're saying, yeah, this is needed, then cut. I don't think I'm in the position to say, no, it's not, but if they could just revisit it and just confirm that this is a timeline that would apply, considering their history with the district. And that's just based on the comments that board members made, that just hoping that we could get somebody in by early fall. So with that in mind,
How long did it take last time? When you used them?
I think it was a little bit, probably maybe 5 to 6 months, I think. It seemed like a little bit longer, yeah.
We started in February and yeah, the media, I'll put it in by June. So.
Just so they can just revisit it and see if they could make it apply more to us rather than just template that they normally use.
Yeah, I can definitely share that information.
And do we, again, I wasn't here for this. It seems like there's a lot of positive feedback from having used them before, even though we didn't hire the person people that they brought in for the interview. Is there any reason that we need to take this and look for other recruiting agencies out there?
I thought we were just considering one.
Yeah, I just didn't know as a public
Oh.
board if we need to. I mean, I know we're happy with them. I just brought it up more as a point of making sure that we're not singling out people that we keep using every time in a public agency. So I don't know what the rules are around.
We had done an RFP when we conducted last time too with Pick.
Okay.
And then this
That's who,
time,
that's who came out.
they're the ones that we have.
Got it.
Used the most recent time.
Okay.
Yeah,
And the process was, I think it was, allowed for a lot of input and questioning. They were very open. Yeah.
Okay.
and to that point, I would even add for the report. That I think it would be useful, because, you know, it does say here they did an excellent job, they're familiar and they're available to me start. But I think if we're gonna not do an RFP process, we can maybe make that a little bit more robust about why exactly, you know, like what was the experience, you know, the timelines were met, the candidates were, you know, the right caliber, et cetera. It's just a little bit thin on why we're doing that. So, but if that's,
Yeah.
if an RFP went out before, then right, yeah, it was just probably a little bit more explanation for that
On
decision would
the
be
staff
helpful.
report, you said?
Right, yeah, so we
So
have,
they met their deliverables, they were on time,
Mhm.
they gave us 3 or
Right.
4 candidates that were of appropriate caliber, you know, we were happy with the background. Because I think for me, it's more or less just doing background checks and really digging into the references.
Mhm.
And that's the part that's, I think, getting people to apply for it. You can put a LinkedIn post out there and get a lot, but then actually screening all those people is probably pretty time consuming. So, all right.
And the pricing, I think the pricing, was, fairly reasonable last time.
Yeah, that's 36.
yeah, I had a comment about that as far as the
Yeah.
pricing.
Because I always avoid the biggest price, that's why. So I think it was, and 36 seems reasonable.
Well, it's 36 all in, but you know, we have to reimburse for travel if they're extra on site, so it's technically not all in per se. So I wondered, because I see the 36, but, and I don't know, whatever the agreement's gonna say, presumably Jeff is gonna review it right, but it should be up to a certain amount, because I would wonder, you know, how many, site visits did we have last time? What kind of travel are we talking about? You know, where were they traveling from and how often were they doing it? Because presumably for on-site visits, they're gonna have to travel here to do them. So it all kind of goes hand in hand, but I would wonder, like, what did we spend last time? Because if the agreement says 36 and it ended up being 80, it's a little bit of a different number.
Yeah, I will see. Offhand, I don't know. At that point, I wasn't in the meetings here, so I don't have that numbers on the quantity of people if they were attending us, but I can
That's-
look into it.
Yeah, we were all kind of staff
Yeah.
involved at all. We didn't get a chance to interview anybody.
Really?
Right, but you know, the concept of with the RFP process, we probably there's records that we could go back and revisit to see, how many were considered and what did they offer and what was the reason that we picked this one?
So what I had last time when we worked with them, the total not to exceed ended up being just under 32,000. It was 25,000 for services and about 4,700 for reimbursable expenses.
And wait, was that on top of the 36?
No,
So it's 20
it was
I see,
25,
okay.
and then we had the 6,700 in reimburse, I'm sorry, 4,700 in
Mhm.
reimbursables on
Just under
that
30.
contract, so just about 32.
Let's just
So
say.
yeah, so that was it.
I have one other thing. Oh, also,
Oh, it went up like a lot, actually. It went up like
I'm sorry,
30%.
I knew that was 6,700, that was a,
67.
But it still went up 30% for the last 2 years, just their general basic cost. That's a lot. I don't know anybody else making more than 30% 2 years ago.
Was it just Tuesday?
just 24, early 2024 when we did
Yeah,
it.
so 2 years, they went up 30%. Be nice to push back a little bit and say,
Please find out why. But also just one last thing for me, on the references. So I saw they had the state bar in there and a few other, different public agencies, special districts, but I did not see any healthcare districts. So I would just wonder about, you know, as far as, healthcare professionals and where they're kind of pulling from on that, because of, at least from what I saw, I may have overlooked it, but from what I saw for the references and the other agencies that they've worked with, there wasn't a healthcare district listed, so I would
The
just.
last time they did
have a
include the
question about
healthcare district. I
Did
think
they?
that,
Okay.
I recall that they did, and I think they mentioned it, you know, they have experience with, CH,
CSDA?
I thought so. Let me see.
Okay.
Professional associations, it says CSDA.
Maybe that's what it was, that I wrote that down.
Oh, it's one of.
Mm,
31. This is they're involved in this, that's all their associations, organizations.
So should we put on our opinion? And look for stuff, here it is, page 1. Just the experience of the people that they have their associations. And, the companies that the districts, USDA. That's what they really rely on is the people having an experience.
Says Bob Murray is a woman in minority-owned business. What it says. Bob Murray and Associates, a woman in minority-owned business.
He's a woman? It's like the principal.
Maybe his wife. owns
But it's a
it.
DBA. DBP Ventures.
Boundary Galleta Phillips.
I was satisfied with their process the last time. And the cost does concern me a little bit if they did go up 30%. But I don't remember exactly how much they were, if they were at the higher end last time. Or in the mid level.
And then folders.
I consider just going back to them and saying, look, it was 2 years ago.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
we're okay with the 10% increase if we want to keep the job, otherwise we go back for an RFP. I think they'd probably take it. So, not a lot of money, but still taxpayer money.
How did you find anything?
I'm not seeing anything offhand here in the respective folders that I thought it would be in, but I can look deeper into where it may have been saved from the prior one. Yeah, I just didn't have it offhand. Sorry.
So you're suggesting going back and tell them,
I just think 30% is a lot over 2 years for the same thing there and did job for us. So
Mhm.
We didn't even take their candidates last time. Just, I mean, I'm always one that just never accepts the first offer. I'm just like, hey, we like working with you, but 30% increase after 2 years, nobody else is making 30% more.
Had there been specific direction at the end of the last meeting as far as the recruitment? Because this was brought by,
No,
our
I
legal
think,
had shared that with us. And
So there was a discussion that we should just use them because it was so, that we had went through the process, that there's a way that we could actually reduce some of the time. To
Mhm.
put somebody in
Mhm.
place with the idea of hoping
That's
to
a starting
somebody in
point.
by the fall. That we are all satisfied, the ones that did participate in the process the last time, were satisfied with them. So we thought there would be some benefit with just going with them again. And the legal counsel was telling us that it wasn't required to start the RFP if we were comfortable with them. If they say, yeah, we're comfortable with it.
Yeah. You'll get a quote from them, I think he said.
Okay, well, that makes perfect sense then, so as far as you mentioning the timeline element.
So should we tell them 10%?
I would say like, look, guys, we just did this with you. You're up over 30% from your thing 2 years ago. You know, we'd like to work with you again, but can you do anything with this amount? The last time it was 25.
25 is what.
And to say that, you know, with the board, that seems a lot more reasonable as a starting point for us. And we know there's gonna be some additional expenses. I think last time you had 6,700. That seems very appropriate for us. And they're like, well, let's think about it. And then a day later or two, they're gonna come back and say, well, we can't do 25, we can do X amount. So.
So I will accept your recommendation, make move, ask them if they will take a 10% increase.
Or just whatever
Or
else.
less from the previous,
Yeah.
the previous contract.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. We got a motion and a second. Were there any public comments? I know I had an email about something.
You do. Actually, he's not with us. So I guess that changed. The person that wanted to make the public comment is not here with us online.
Okay. Are there any other public comments?
No, there are no other public comments. So just so that I'm clear that the concerning the direction of approval is that staff will go back to Bob Murray for a to determine if a 10% increase or decrease is possible from related to the prior contract. Is that correct?
10% increase from last time, so what we bring it down.
27,500. Yeah, we're comfortable with 27,500.
And also we can revisit the schedule to make sure that, you know, that would be.
Excellent. All right, so, seeing no more public comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, consulting service agreement for the mutual broadcasting for podcast production. This was brought up. See here? No. Will. No, I didn't know if Will was on for that, but this is our,
Will is on if you have any questions.
no, I didn't know if he wanted to say anything or not, but I think we've all reviewed this. Very happy with the podcast productions.
So, the only, Will, you mentioned before when we were doing our recording that, you were thinking about, you were trying to figure out a way to add the picture component to it.
Right. So what we're doing in the meantime is we are doing virtual. So basically through a platform like Zoom, and that is counted as video. But John, the co-producer, has figured out a way to actually do video in my office, so we don't have to go to a studio space. So we're going to try that.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I'm supportive.
I'm also supportive. Yeah, I think it's what, 750 an episode, so.
750 a month, that includes weekly.
Oh,
episodes.
yeah, that's very. It's very nice to have that, so, okay, are there any public? Actually, we have a motion to approve this,
So second.
okay, and then any public comments?
There are no public comments, but Linda Evans joined us a little late. I'm not sure if she wants to make a statement or not. Linda?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, for some reason I had 3:30 down on this, this meeting, so that's obviously not the case. I'm gonna go off on that. I just wanted to make a comment on item number H1, which was the search firm agreement, the proposal for the recruitment of the district CEO. And in that agreement, it indicates it's a 10-step process for the completion and onboarding process. Step 1 includes the candidate profile and states that there'll be meetings with board members, internal stakeholders, and external stakeholders to gather input regarding the ideal candidate. Would like to respectfully request that Mike DeToro, the CEO for Desert Regional Medical Center, be included in the list of external stakeholders. This request would be consistent with the prior CEO search process when Michelle Finney, the former CEO for Desert Regional, did participate in the candidate input process. And given the district does own the hospital, there's a very collaborative working relationship between our hospital operator and the district itself. And it's important to outline those qualities and skill sets needed to understand the complexity of the current and new lease, especially in regards to Desert's obligations for the facility and its infrastructure. So we would appreciate consideration to include Mike DeToro, CEO of Desert Regional, as the district board moves through the recruitment and selection process. Thank you.
Thank you. We're at a public comments for the consulting service agreement for the podcasts. We have a motion, there's no public comments, all in favor?
Uh,
Aye, all right, on to section number 3, other matters, resolution 2604. Uniform public construction cost account.
Yes, so we are bringing forth this resolution, which we had drafted by our legal counsel, to allow the district to participate in the Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act. By opting into participation of this act, this would allow the district to gain flexibility in the bid projects, in the bid process for projects that are up to 220,000. There's some specific ways we have to document the costs involved, as well as it allows us to set up a qualified bidders list, which helps shorten the duration to find bidders when the projects are under that threshold. Right now, our current policy is about 25,000. So if it's above 25,000 on a public works project, we can go into bid. So this will give us more flexibility if we choose to do so by adopting this resolution.
Question.
Yes.
Okay, so, the way this works then is that if we have a project that we need to do like a major renovation for one of our Las Palmas. Okay, and, if we expect it to be like $100,000 project estimated, and then we go to that list and we pick 3 organizations to do, we still do the 3 bids based on that, rather than put the notice out there and wait for 3, more than 3 to respond. How does that work?
No, and the last time I was more involved with this, it's been several years with a prior employer, but because the qualified list was the open process, so people could submit and become qualified bidders on that list, then that allowed us to utilize those who have been through that qualified process already to do some of these smaller jobs. If it's over the 220,000, or if there's some different complexities to it where that wouldn't fall into place, we would do our normal bid process.
But I guess, thank you for that. But does it still allow us, does it still include the 3 bids to review, to compare more than one? Is that the plan that we would still, go through the process? If we pick 3 from that list, rather than putting the notice out there to the general public and waiting for response and then looking at those, does it, the plan is that we would still, require 3 bids to be able to compare and make the better decision?
I need to look at that. I don't know if there's a specific requirement for 3. If that was something that we opted to do based on those qualified bidders, that, from what I recall, that would be allowable, but I don't recall there being anything that requires that. That would be more of a internal process, but since we'd have those bidders in there, that would be.
Because if you don't have that, and I thank you for checking into that, and I think that's important for us to know. If you go to a bidder that's listed in this qualified list of bidders, and you just go to one, you're just getting one proposal. So I think we still need to have more than one, and I think its standard is 3. That in some cases, at least making the attempt, in some cases, there may be some non-interest if it's a small project, but I think that it has to be more than one. If it's after a certain dollar amount, it should be 3. And usually the process is that if there's not any response, then you can document that you only got 1. And for this reason, therefore, you are going to continue and not put it out for bid. But I just want to make sure that we're still going to have that process of, if it's a big project, that we still have 3, that we just don't go and move to 1.
Yeah. Oh, I'll make a suggestion to that as well. I think this type of act makes a lot of sense for us doing work at Las Palmas and other things, especially if we're gonna do more things in the community. I think one of the things we can do is like, have our own public comment. Like, we can have a list of our contractors we currently use, and it could be a publicly available list, so it's not like we're keeping a list of people that we only work with. This can be made
public. Who we work with and what we do. And that way, if people want to work with us, they can come in and submit an evaluation process, much like a grant process to come and work, because we need good vendors. We want to do it locally. We don't want to take all these bids to public over, what's the amount of over?
25,000 for our current.
Yeah.
So that give us that flexibility up to 220.
235. This one I was looking, I was just reading a little more about it because I looked up some, but I think it makes somewhat sense to make it a little easier for us, but your point of favoritism. Right. Just one, you can do always working, you never take a public bid. So I think there's some work going on with it.
And there's an element in it too, that this doesn't mean that everything has to go down. When I've worked with this in the past, it's more for specific things where bidding might not be easily accomplished. Or you have the workforce, or in some instances, you already have a contractor that you're working with that could do that work, but that doesn't stop us from still bidding out those other elements if there are those dollar values. It's really just meant to be more flexibility. And we have a little more at the 25,000. You know, when I was working with this 7 or 8 years ago, most of the cities had $5,000 limit, and so that was where it has big flexibility in that. Now we don't have our own workforce, but what legal counsel, because they were helping us look at some of the options, was talking about this allows us to use contractors as well, since we don't have. So we don't say, right, so. But the adoption of this just gives us that flexibility to do so. I have to look into it more just to look at the updates compared to when I worked with it last. But there's usually a specific process on how we document and keep that internally on why this route was more effective and price efficient than.
So, I can understand what you're saying. I'm thinking of an example of if you have somebody working at Las Palmas that is, that you're working with, that you know that they do good work and that their prices are reasonable. But now we're looking at doing projects throughout the Coachella Valley. And if you're working with a contractor in Palm Springs and then you work with a contractor in Desert Hot Springs, I want, contractors in Desert Hot Springs to be considered. I want somebody from the East Valley, if there's a project in the East Valley, because I believe that, that you should consider the local workforce. So I don't want it to be that we're just giving jobs to one company all the time. So to be fair, I want it to be based on, you know, cost. I want, of course, quality, but that's why I think that they have, there has to be, not for the really small dollar amounts, but if you're doing a project that you want to get the best buck and the best deal for it, I think that's why the 3 bids, are, you know, it's reasonable, but.
You can still do that. You could still take it out to bid. It would just give us the flexibility to not go through the public process of
Yes,
doing
that's
it.
what I like.
But you could say, and that's why I think keeping a list of who we work with now, and if you want to do that, register to be a part of the list, and we can send out our bid of work. Like, hey, we're doing drywall work, and it's, you know, a $50,000 budget. Put it out there to our list of preferred contractors. That means it's very easy to do it. You get a list, they send in their insurance, they send everything we have, just so we say, hey, and here's some projects they've done, so we can vet them as a board as we begin doing more work. It's much easier than trying to go through the whole public route of having to announce it, put it in the paper and all the process that goes into the public bidding process. And then it gives Eric and whoever's managing Las Palmas some flexibility, because I think the reason this came up is because we have a contractor who knows the building very well, and wanting to have them finish the work they've already started, but the bid amount's gonna be a little bit higher. And so this gives us that flexibility to work with a person who knows the building to go finish some of this complicated work on the sewer and the plumbing, so.
That contractor sitting.
Yeah, I saw it, sure. That's why I didn't say anything, that's why I didn't say anything negative about his price or his budget yet.
Well, I think that does work if we don't want to, I think we're trying to get a good middle ground of being able to be flexible,
Yeah.
but still getting the best deal.
I know.
And so being able to utilize this list and being able to still, go through the 3 bid process. Yeah, to, ensure that we are, considering, you know, the location, the project, you know, and being able to compare those things.
Yeah, and I'm pulling this up, and I'm sorry I didn't have this up before, but it references, instead of being a formal bid process, gives us the ability to, or would give us the ability to do an informal bid process, which is generally just reaching out instead of having sealed bids and all that, but it's at the extended dollar value, so. The informal bid process would still involve, which
Open to that, as so long as we have an informal bid process that would be consistently used, that would be known and if it's,
Yeah.
if the dollar amount works for you, 220,000 seems kind of high to me, but
I think it's mostly to get into like some of the plumbing work like we're getting into in Las Palmas, and that price can go up pretty high, but it goes above 25,000 pretty quick.
yeah.
You know, I think the only risk that we have to be careful with, and I think this committee probably oversees it, being the real estate committee, is just making sure we don't separate projects, meaning like, if it's a project that's over 220, we don't want to divide it into two parts, just so we can go through the implementation.
Right.
So I think we have to be very careful about doing that, how we represent it. That's probably the only thing that somebody with the public scrutiny could come through and say, well, you guys just divide your projects up to do this. And we wouldn't do that. But I think from your, you know, the only thing I see about a risk involved is that we just have to be very clear that, yes, this is gonna go 220, and we're gonna take it through the public process now versus like dividing up a project into 4 parts, and it's $1 million and we got it under that, so we can put in.
Where did 220 come from?
that's from the
The act.
list. It
Yeah.
previously was 200, and then I don't know how recently they had updated it to 220 from the $200 to $200,000 one.
So it is something that this industry that relates to. Okay.
California adopted it too, so as a public contract. Okay. I am in favor of supporting the adoption. This doesn't mean we have to use it, but it gives us that flexibility. I think we have to notify some people as well.
Yeah, there's some additional steps I'll have to find out, as well as set up some internal procedures on how we're documenting that. Just adopting the resolution doesn't put in place. There's still some internal elements we'd have to do before we would move forward, but we'd make sure to
And you'll feedback to us with that, yeah, process.
on that. It's just this would be the first step in the process.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Any public comment?
No public comment.
Any comment? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Number 4, resolution 2605, termination of the retirement protection plan.
So what we have here, resolution 2605, this is kind of a secondary component to the items we brought back in the past regarding the termination of the Desert Hospital Retirement Protection Plan. So this is the official resolution designating termination. And then from there, Nyhart, who we've worked with, will be starting to send out letters to request all the participants to either submit for lump sum payouts, but this is the official process to terminate the plan.
Then we're gonna have piece here. Is this related to that?
No.
No.
Not specifically. No. Yeah,
I think nice,
so it's
nice
actually-
work on that, getting this process of closing out this time in our district done in terms of sponsoring the retirement plans. Any questions on that?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Any public comment on this resolution? All right, all in
No
favor?
public comments.
Aye. All right, the monthly financial report change, just the discussion, and then we'll move back to Keith.
Sure. So, what I wanted to just bring up to get the committee's feedback was a couple potential changes in the financial reports. The first element is right now, when we're closing out our month, because our meeting is on the second Tuesday of each month, a lot of times we're closing out our books the first few days. Sometimes that can be as soon as the third of the month. And so we're working to get that done on the timeline, but what that means is that, if we get invoices on the 4th or the 5th, we end up having to post them to the next month. And so it's not always reflective of the actual expenses we had in that prior month. There's nothing wrong with it. We would do that at any point. If we receive an invoice later, we'd recognize it as soon as it came out. But and looking at, when I worked elsewhere, a lot of times they've had it either be like the 15th business day or the 20th business day of the month to close the month. And so what I wanted to throw out there was getting the feedback on, changing how we're reporting it to where the financial books would be closed, say by the 15th business day of the month. All the same reports would still be in the packet. We'd still want to report on all the check registers, the deposit details for the month that just closed. The main difference here is we wouldn't actually close our books from invoices and expenses until the 15th day of the month. And so it would be the income statements, balance sheet and whatnot from the prior month. So as an example, right now we reported all on May. This was the case, income statement and balance sheet would show April's numbers because those wouldn't have been closed until almost the end of that. But it would just help the packet prep that we had, and I just feel like it would be that much more reflective of the expenses that we had for that prior month going on. And but again, all the main things that we want to share because of not only feedback that we've had from the auditors, but the committee would still see check registers, deposit details, because all of our normal bank closing elements would still occur as normal. It's just giving us more flexibility for those invoices that may come in. That way the numbers are the most reflective of those expenses. And I did note here
Yeah, because
that
the books won't close until the meeting. They'll close actually after our meeting usually.
Correct.
Yeah, so you're gonna collect everything up until that before the books close.
yeah, and in this case, because we have August that was closed, if this was something that we thought was acceptable, I probably wouldn't start this until we start reporting in September, which would be for would be all the August check register deposit detail, but it would show July's income statement and balance sheet
Is what
because we're dark.
what is happening now, so the May data that you presented today was
Everything from May.
for May. And what would it have been if this had been enacted?
If I had this, the only difference would be the income statement, balance sheets, those would be from April. The other reports would still be for the month that just ended. As well as credit card reports doing note that. So you're seeing the spending and the deposits from the most recent elements, just.
And
expenses
the reason to show even a month prior balance sheet and income statement is accuracy.
It would be, I say more accurate, I don't want to
I know,
imply in any way.
I'm
that
just trying to
it's
figure out,
accurate,
I'm just
it'd
trying
be-
to articulate it.
Sure, it'd be
But-
better reflective of the expenses that we had in that period. Because there are some of those months where we're closing on the 3rd, and so. It's just which we reflect all of those the following month. But one of the other elements is then it just creates a little more flexibility that first week of the month when we're preparing the packets. So if other things do come up, we can better.
So it allows for late vendor requests and things that may need to be applied to April to actually be applied before the books get closed. I think,
Has this ever been, I'm sorry,
no, go ahead.
has this ever been brought up by the auditors?
No, not specifically. The main thing that they're talking about is that when they're looking at the elements, since we are a smaller financial department, they've looked at how the board's involved. And so the fact that we are bringing all the check registers and deposit details, credit cards, is important because you get that with the committee and the board reviewing it and approving it. And in this case, that's why they would still be based on the month that just ended. So that wouldn't change. I wouldn't want to have any delays in that, just so you'd see that. And then the only other feedback that we've had from the auditors in the past is just regarding segregation of duties. Because we generally just had the accounting manager and CAO. But what we have done, we've now signed a month as far as the administration and program assistant position that we have with Lorena. So now she's starting to do the bank recs. And so we have that separation now, which is one of the elements that they would have liked to see, but since we didn't have the staff to do so. So we are adhering to what they're looking for.
So my only other comment would be is, as we are anticipating growing and having a lot more activity, this is probably going to be even more important to do this. To not put so much stress at the beginning that could actually lead to some.
Well, and what we would be reviewing isn't a complete reflection of what happened in that month on the balance sheet. So I think
I move approval.
Yeah, and then the only other item I had was just currently, and I don't know what the history is, we have two versions of the balance sheet. One's a condensed version and one's the full version. I haven't seen that elsewhere, used regularly, and so
Yeah.
I would just propose discontinuing that condensed version.
would too.
Because the expanded one gives you all the details.
I agree.
Only saves a page or two out of the report, but it's just one
I
less.
think just direction from us will be, I think these are fine. It's not not listed as an action item, but I think the direction from us would be, you support that?
I think so. Yeah, I think, cause it's that 1 month lag. Cause to the point you were making, Letty, we're about to ramp up operations and, I think increased or consistent or increased oversight is probably more, what we're looking at. And so with a 1 month lag and changing that right now. Well, it wouldn't be right now, technically, right? You said it wouldn't be until, it wouldn't,
Proposed with the start of the new fiscal year, which
Mhm.
is only a month away, but
right,
really that July income statement and balance sheet
Reflect.
we don't have a meeting in August to report anyway. That would be reported in September. What we have historically done on the Septembers is to report the July and August financials. So in this case, we would still report July and August, all the deposits, check registers, credit cards. The difference would be, that would be where we'd start just reporting 1 month of the income statement, balance sheet, and any related reports, which primarily is like the variance analysis that is based on how we did.
Not much will change with what we typically discuss in this meeting. It'll mostly just be the completion of the balance sheet if and when we go back and look at that. So, yeah, I think you're gonna get more accuracy when you do it this way because you're gonna get more time to close out that month. So rather than having to go back and add in after we've already reviewed the month, we'll actually be reviewing a completed, right? Financial
Yeah, we
statement.
don't, once they've been processed through it, we don't go back and adjust it anyway, so, but we're posting it.
I know,
next
but
month.
you're technically, what you're doing is you end up posting something that would happen in April, in May, because we closed on the 3rd instead of the 15th. So, yeah, I mean, it all kind of washes out anyways, but I think it makes a lot of sense. So.
You know, and thank you to the point, that was one of the elements I neglected to put in my notes here, but it's really in anticipation of the extra.
Yeah.
The extra processes that we're gonna have, and so I like to change things to to align with the fiscal year, and so we're right there anyway, and so this would definitely help, and as I'm working through right now, since I don't have an accounting manager, I'm working with the temp agency, it involves me doing a lot of those reports, and so that would provide some flexibility for me currently as we're searching for that accounting manager and in the training process. So give me some flexibility, so it's not all having to be done that first week,
Yeah.
so.
Nice.
So this is a discussion item, would it at some point need to be into an action item or? no?
I didn't think that it needed to be. There wasn't anything that we don't have a policy that says here's the exact reports that we have.
Mhm, okay.
I just, looking at what the feedback was from the auditor, this is something I've been thinking about for quite a while. But now I have the opportunity to throw it out.
Good. Just would say, like, being mindful of this and the timing, because I believe it was, in one of our meetings with SOEN, where they were saying that, how we're gonna be seeing various reports is going to change as well. So in the midst of that, and I can't recollect exactly, because they went through a list of things of, changing the agenda, how we do all that, but also, potentially like how we're seeing the financial reports and whatnot. So I just want to make sure we're not, moving things around like too substantially, and taking away, a bit of oversight, or at least changing, how we're doing this to a 1 month lag. I see what you're saying, and it does make sense to me. But I think that, keeping in mind that there could then be more changes that are going to be recommended by SOEN moving forward as far as how we operate. So I don't know what that's going to look like, but also moving forward, just to kind of flag that as well, that it could change even further. In some respect, and so just as long as we're continuing to have, go ahead, Tanya.
No, I don't think someone was really more into how we're doing financial management piece or investments.
Basically, yeah,
Yeah.
mostly not, but I do recall, I thought I recalled them saying something about, the different ways that we receive reports could start to change, moving forward, and so that's the only reason I'm just bringing that up, because if we're gonna change this now, then maybe something could change later. That
I
was it.
think it's possible. I don't know anything that I can think of off the top of my head. This feels like getting it in alignment with trying to prepare for growth.
Mhm.
But really when you talk about transparency, because I kind of refer to them as historical docs. All the things that happen, check register, the deposits, those happened at a specific time. We're an accrual,
Mhm.
we're accruing based on when it was. Some of those are estimates, hey, we
Yeah.
think we're gonna get this invoice. I'm gonna estimate Jeff's legal bill for last month, even though we haven't received it yet. So I'm gonna estimate where I don't know that just yet. This sort of change could impact that to where we have a little bit more time, so we know the actuals and
Actual
stuff.
number, yeah.
What you're seeing would be more reflective.
And you're monitoring anything anyway, so if you saw something unusual coming through while you were presenting it,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Or just my notes, like
Yeah.
right now I threw in the, having the receipt of the 2.9 million in tax payments. That's not reflected in any of the books because those haven't been closed, but just something I want to make sure that the committee is aware of. So I would still bring up if there was anything that I saw or were seeing any, trends in different, expenses coming up, that would definitely be shared. So.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Back over to Keith.
Hi.
Hopefully it was okay drive in.
Yeah, it was okay.
Sorry about the change. Seems like a change in time, but.
Yeah, I think what's that?
Very come up here
Sure,
with a big
I
table.
think I looked at the past meeting for the time, and I was like,
It's usually 3.
then I decided just to check in, and I was like, oh. Yeah, there you
No,
go.
thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, yeah, so it just went from a leisurely drive to a little bit more
Some
aggressive.
Mad Max kind of thing.
Exactly. So if you wanna go to, page 2.1. Performance page.
Mhm. Yep.
There you go. All right, so this is through the quarter end March. Year to date, it was negative 73 basis points, which was not bad. It was almost all in the month of March. And we'll talk about that in the economic commentary, but 1 year up 13.25%, compounding at 11.5% over the past 3 years. And, like over a 10-year period, over 8%. So the portfolio has grown very, very nicely over a long time period. It's been a good stretch for risk assets.
Mhm.
The strategic asset allocation is a 60-40 mix of stocks and bonds. At the end of the quarter, it was 61.25% stocks. Modestly overweight international. In January, we added to small cap stocks. That worked out pretty well. We actually removed that remove some of that weighting in small cap in May. So that was a good help to the portfolio. It's either at or above benchmark for most of the time periods. We're a little overweight international, probably bring that down some because international's done exceptionally well. But yeah, that's the performance in a nutshell. It's been very good. I'll also mention S&P was up 10.5%, even though it was down maybe like around 4% in the month of March. It was up 10.5% in April and another 5.5% in May. So quite a rebound from what would be called kind of small volatility.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's look at the performance of the other portfolio, and then I'll talk about the economy and positioning. So that's going to be like 3.1, I think. 3.1, yeah. Well, it's at page 2.1 again, I guess. That's because I combined two reports to get to it. So a little bit deeper in the.
Going down to the,
Yeah, going down to the fixed income.
yeah, to the 2 more. There you go. Oh,
Didn't realize they
Right
were
there.
the same number. There you go. Yeah, because usually I receive this in 2 separate reports and then I just put it together as one. So it ends up with the same numbering. So this is the fixed income account, $75.3 million in it. Was relatively flat in the quarter, but up 4% almost for the 1 year period, compounding at 4.2% over the 3 year period. Less on the longer time period because that's it, where we went from generational lows in interest rates to the rate hikes to quell inflation. But in terms of the portfolio, we've been trying to you go into page 2 point, or actually you go into page 3.1.
I don't have that.
That's going to give you sort of portfolio characteristics.
We don't have those pages.
Keith, are you, we're talking about the healthcare district, not the retirement?
Right there. Okay.
Yeah, the 75, right?
Yeah, there. Yeah, this is the makeup, you have maybe different page numbers than I do. But anyway,
There you go.
so this is the makeup of portfolio. You can see the effective duration is 1.8 years, and that's the benchmark. So just to think about this, every day, the duration drops because the existing portfolio shortens in duration every day. So it's an active process to keep the duration up. If we were worried about rates going much higher, we might let that drift down some. But we're looking at this as, even though rates have kind of backed up a little bit in here, we have a new Fed chairman, and this is really kind of bleeding into the economic review, but we have a new Fed chairman, and my understanding is he's not supposed to raise interest rates. But the market is pricing in a rate hike at this point. So it's not a zero probability that there will be a rate hike, but it's we think that's highly unlikely because the Trump administration would actually like rates lower. And, I'm sure that was discussed when Kevin Warsh, the new Fed chair, got the job. So with that, we're trying to keep our fixed income portfolios at their duration benchmark. And yield to maturity for the portfolio is 3.8%. So that's kind of a number to think about longer term, where we might have, if all things sort of stay flat for a while, this is where rates are. That might be expected to be the kind of near the portfolio return. Rates come down a little bit, then it might be a bit higher. Let's go backwards toward the front of the presentation to section 1 and find the colorful charts. You can find those. So it'd be page 1.9, I think, on my book. Anyway, 1.8, I guess, actually in my book. Yep, there you go. All right, talk about the economy a bit. So, coming into the year, the setup was really good for risk assets. If you think about it, tariffs got stricken down by the Supreme Court. They were re-implemented, but in a more standardized way, not a sort of random way. So they became less impactful. Fed had lowered rates 3 times last year, and bias was further easing this year, and so monetary policy was trending in the right direction. And the big beautiful tax and spending bill was giving higher tax refunds to consumers, and business capex was poised to be strong because there are a lot of goodies in there for business to invest in capital equipment. So you have really fiscal policy stimulative moving forward, monetary policy stimulative moving forward, and tariffs being less of an issue than they had been the prior year. Then we got to March rather, and geopolitics entered the picture again, and the U.S. and U.S. and Israel started a war with Iran. The Strait of Hormuz has been closed since then, so it's been quite some time now. 20% of the global oil gets shipped through there, so I think some of it's getting through, but not very much. And oil doubled in price to $110 a barrel. It subsequently has backed off with the talk of some kind of, with the pullback in the bombing and the talk of a truce of some sort. It's oil's kind of settled in the sort of mid-90s, but that's still quite a bit higher than it was prior to the conflict. Generally speaking, the equity market has been strong with a good setup for the risk environment of the economy, deregulation, sort of encouraging businesses to pursue growth, AI investment, and the earnings that contributes to the S&P 500, as well as boosting the market multiple and expectations for rate cuts, all those things supporting stocks over the last 3 years. As I mentioned, we have a new Fed chairman. I think it will be interesting to see. So he's got some pretty strong views. He's actually got a good background for being a Fed chairman. He worked in the Fed before. He's got some different views about how this thing should be done. He's only one vote, and he has to get the board on his side. But you know, he doesn't like the big Fed balance sheet, which I think is like around $7 trillion now. So he would like to reduce the size of the Fed balance sheet. And that would be, of course, pulling liquidity out of the economy. But at the same time, he'd like to lower, that would give him maybe the ability to lower interest rates. So that would be stimulative. So you kind of have these two tectonic plates of lower rates and smaller balance sheet moving to offset each other. And while that may not change longer term interest rates, you know, the 10-year might still be 4 to 4.5%, where it has been for some time. It could mean that short-term interest rates come down, which would help the housing market because people could get, you know, shorter duration mortgages at lower rates. And it may not necessarily be inflate housing prices, but, you know, get people to be able to buy and sell again, because the housing market's been pretty quiet. It's like the sellers don't want to sell because they believe it's worth one price, and the buyers are like, well, mortgage rates are too high, I can't afford it. So sort of an impasse. In terms of positioning of the portfolio, if you go one more slide forward. So this was at the end of, no, the other way. Yeah, so this is at the end of March. And as I mentioned, we had added to small cap stocks, at which added our weighting to equities a bit, and sourced that out of fixed income. So this is what it would have looked like at the end of the quarter, but subsequently, if we looked at it today, it'd be right up the middle. Everything would be neutral, with the idea that, you know, we have policy uncertainty, which remains, it's kind of volatile, geopolitical risks and elevated valuations. So those are kind of the risk side of the equation. And then good economic setup, AI enthusiasm and rate cuts or lower yields eventually, sort of on the supportive side of the equation. And so with that, we've just kind of position portfolios and strategic asset allocation. That's all I got. Glad to answer any questions.
And we were talking the strategic plan about the interest rate. You know, this is the data we were referring to is what he presents here. Our total portfolio, the 7.5 million. So when you look at like interest over years, so you can see like over the last 10 years, the portfolio made 1.9%. You know, over 7 years was 2.27%. So we talk about inflation being over that, you know, the actual value of that portfolio has gone down.
Right, yeah.
So
return is negative.
yeah, so I think that was something we brought up about some of the strategic positioning we may do with some of the capital that we're receiving. Like sometimes what we have now, like this is a good, you know, cash balance sheet thing, you know, it's sitting here, we can use it, but it's not increasing the value of the portfolio. It's actually decreasing it by a few percentage points a year, probably with inflation, depending on it. You could probably tell us accurately what it is, but it was just a point that we had brought up.
Yeah, so longer term, that has been a headwind,
Yeah.
because inflation has been
Yeah.
not well contained.
Correct.
It's a little bit better right now because the yield on the portfolio is higher and inflation is not as
Right.
rabid as it was.
But it just still eats away at it.
It does eat
Because
away
we're
at it,
limited in our
yes.
ability to offset higher inflation with equity growth, so.
And that is, you know, typically a lot of times with, you know, when we look at different asset allocations, between the 15 to 30% in stocks
Yeah.
is sort of what we call an inflation fighting portfolio.
Correct.
Where you have some growth to, you know, offset the effects of inflation. And when you look at it, actually, the yields are higher and the volatility is the same.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's a better mix, but, you know, unfortunately, I believe this is
We're a little fixed in
a
what
little
we
fixed. in what you
But we can
do.
offset some of that in other mechanisms as we look to grow the district and
Mhm.
other opportunities present themselves. So thank you again for the presentation. Were there any other questions? Great. All right. Well, I'll adjourn this meeting and we'll go straight into the foundation.
Did you want to comment?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes,
Sorry.
sorry.
Good morning, Aaron.
Thank you for reminding.
Reopen.
So, the, back in the financials, we had 20,000 that was still the balance, and then you gave us an update, Donna, that we had set aside the 20,000 for two anticipated small grants, and that one of them has actually been withdrawing, so we have potentially 10,000 that's left over. And I know in the past, when we've had money left over, we have looked at how we can use that money for things that have not been addressed, like, for example, the homeless shelters. When we had some extra money, we said, Donna, can you go see where this little bit of money, I think it was like not significant amount, this money could be used. So when I was looking at this, I was thinking about this recent conversation that I had with one of our previous grantees, Mary Trevino, and that organization out in the Eastern Coachella Valley, that they deliver food to families, mostly farm workers that are dealing with the reduced workload, the seasons just being what it is, shorter seasons, and the fact that there is such a tremendous need for helping some of the farm workers out there during this the economic, kids coming out of school, the shorter crop seasons. So I was just wondering if there would be an opportunity for us to explore the idea of using that remainder to look at the grant that is currently open. I can't remember, I think it's currently open, and if we could supplement it to help them during this time. So
Just for the record, Millie did reach out to me and I did guide her to our website for information, and that did not violate AB 2019.
Well, the grant application process is closed, so she wouldn't even be able to
But is
apply
it-
for a mini grant or a regular grant.
So the grant period that she had now, it's already ended, the grant period?
I don't think she had an open grant.
She didn't have an open
No.
grant? It was just, wasn't it a small grant or what was it?
It was not a mini grant, it was over, I think it was like 50,000.
It was a larger.
Yeah, larger amount, yeah, but I believe that grant has ended, closed, but I could double check.
And I think she missed the window, I think, for submission,
Yeah.
I think. when
Was that
she had
the-
submitted.
Oh, and that's housing now the company.
Yeah, that was, there was a $75,000 grant that was awarded in, a 1-year period, in July 24th, 2025.
So is it closed already,
Yeah.
July 2026? Or,
It was awarded July 2024 and ended in,
oh, it
June
ended in July
2025.
2025? Okay,
Or,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I show awarded in July of 25, so that it would have been 1 year up through July 26.
so it's ending at the end of this month,
Yeah.
June 30th,
so it is still open then.
yeah.
Would there be a possibility then, would it be,
A cost grant or something. I think for transparency's sake, that I would think that would be very fair to other organizations that would be asking for other funds as well.
Yeah.
She does have the opportunity to work with Fine Food Bank, which she will not do, and she can get free fruits and vegetables and produce from Fine Food Bank. No, she does not.
She does not work with them. The food that they bring is from a source out in LA. That's why they have to rent the truck, a U-Haul truck to kind of bring all those fresh produce in and then deliver it.
I know, Debbie Espinoza has tried to reach out to her. In fact, even when we had that meeting, remember Debbie, we were in the big room in the board meeting and Millie spoke and she was talking about how the necessity for food and Debbie has actually stood up and said, "Oh, we're here, work with you. We can give you all the food you need."
Interesting.
okay, so I brought up the question then. Thank you for sharing that, and I don't think there's anything that I would be violating. You brought up the policy, but I reached out to her and told her that she needs to reach out to Fine Food Bank and see if there's any possibility there that they can.
If she desperately needs food, yeah. I would suggest that be an alternative. They're right there on the street.
Yeah, but I think the one thing though is, that there might be food, that they should be, accessing services, but I don't know, I'm not familiar with all the grants. If there's costs that are not covered, that are beyond the food, if there's staffing costs, rental costs, or delivery costs, of taking it to, I think that they actually deliver it to mobile home parks. So those things, the 10,000 could go a long way to it. How did we do it before when we did distribute that leftover money from, the homeless, I think it was, health money. How did we do it?
It was from the foundation.
From the foundation?
Yeah, and we were unwinding that initiative. Yeah, where we gave it to the two cities, Desert Hot Springs and,
Palm Springs.
Thompson, yeah.
Yeah, 7,000 each, and we diverted the remainder that we had at that point into homeless outreach for some of their supplies, and we're still continuing almost at the end of those funds to utilize them for the rental vans that pair up with the mobile medical each fund.
You make a good point about fairness, but I'm also trying to consider the reality of the situation that, a lot of organizations, not just this organization, but a lot of organizations are probably going to be calling to find out, hey, where are the grant opportunities? And this is what we were talking about at the very end, the last meeting, is that how do we stay focused on the plan? And that we're looking at not funding anything for many months, unknown uncertainty. It could be 6 months, it could be 12 months. And we're gonna have a lot of organizations that are gonna be reaching out to us and saying, we have this tremendous need right now, we have this gap. So that's something that we just kind of have to bring attention to the board, because we talked about that at the last meeting, and it's gonna be difficult when you're, just one that has reached out to me, I can just visualize, how this is gonna be, so multiply it times, 40, 50 organizations, it's gonna be difficult. So just want to share that.
Thank you. Onto the foundation meeting, call to order here, same date, different time. May I have an approval of the agenda?